Hey guys, it's Timothy here. Just getting home from work, and I realized there's been a ton of spoilers since yesterday. What with the Masterpiece Collection being completely spoiled pretty much after I made my video yesterday, and this one card here as well. And just heads up, I noticed there were a bunch of spoilers, but I haven't actually looked at any of them yet past the Masterpiece Collection, so everything that was spoiled from the actual set after Eliminate the Competition is a card that I have not seen yet and have not read yet. So we're just going to toss right in there. I will look at all of the Masterpiece Collection cards because they are sweet and they deserve to be looked at. I think that's what they were made for. So just to go ahead and throw in this last card that was kind of spoiled late in the day yesterday. Eliminate the Competition is a 4 and a black sorcery. It's a rare. You sack X creatures to cast it, and you destroy X target creature. So if you are at parity or you are doing better on the board than your opponent, this puts you in the lead, or at least keeps you at parity. It's very similar the way it plays to, or the way I imagine it plays to Voldaren Pariah, the sack 3, your opponent sacks 3 creature from Eldritch Moon. Obviously, that one ends up being a 6/5 flyer, but you get the idea, right? You use it when you're in a position where you are going to win the game. You just need to clear off your opponent's stuff. Or maybe you have a big bomb, but your opponent has a bunch of stuff blocking the way. You can set yourself up to take advantage of this card, clear off a bunch of your opponent's creatures, and like I said, at worst, you can put yourself at parity here, or you can even just sack a creature, destroy a creature for 5, which isn't the worst thing in the world. Being sorcery speed, that's probably not great, but I can see this card being passable, and I can see this card being like an absolute bomb. And I don't really know how to evaluate it yet. It reminds me of the card, I believe it's called Hex from original Ravnica block, which was, I think, 5 mana in black, maybe 6 mana, and it just said destroy 6 target creatures, which was great. Like, obviously, that's great, but sometimes your opponent only had like 4 creatures, so you had to target 2 of your own or something like that. Obviously, this is a little bit different, but you get the idea. Sometimes you're going to have to lose things in order to clear your opponent's things off the board. My only gripe is that this is not really that much stronger than something like Ruthless Disposal, and that was an uncommon where you sack a creature and you basically kill 2 target creatures. The only difference is that you don't have to discard for this, and it is 5 mana sorcery same way. But I don't know. I could see this being potentially really, really strong. If you're in a token deck, it's insanely good, and if you're able to generate some sort of value off your creatures dying, then it gets a lot better too. But at its worst, it's something like 5 mana, sack a creature, destroy a creature, which is probably like a common level card. And at its best, it can just like completely win the game and decimate your opponent's board if they're falling behind what you already have on board. Anyway, moving on. I'm going to skim over the Masterpiece Collection. I will note I'm not going to talk about these cards in Limited because they're not... You should never go into a Limited event or like a sealed GP or anything like that expecting to play with or against these cards. It will happen sometimes, and some of these cards, some of these reprints are like absurd in Limited, but if you open it, like, let people have some fun, right? But... Anyway, we already saw Hangerback Walker. We saw V Gearhulk. Obviously, the other 4 Gearhulks here, all in their super like golden art. Pretty sweet, pretty sweet. Torrential Gearhulk looks like a Pokemon here. Noxious Gearhulk, combustible. Sea Gear. I guess I can't see Gear, but there are 2 Sea Gears. Anyway, that's my email, folks, if you wanted to check out who's emailing me. And yeah, I should mention that because that happens in like all my videos. Like my scrolling sometimes like accidentally scrolls back. I don't know. I don't get it. But anyway, Champion's Helm. This is probably the only artifact on this entire list that I would be like disappointed to open because it's like fat garbage. Obviously, it's a commander card. Not even like a commander staple, but just disappointing card all around, and not even like that good in Limited. Honestly, it's like an average piece of equipment in Limited. Aether Vial, one of my favorite cards of all time. Sorry. Super cool art. I love it. All of the art is cool. Like, I wish I was an artist. I wish I could make things that look like this, but I can't. Mana Crypt. Kind of weird considering that was just reprinted for basically the first time and is now getting an alternate art reprint like just a couple months later. But anyway, Gauntlet of Power, nice little variation to something like Cage Sun if you're into that sort of effect. Chromatic Lantern, a really cool card, really great fixer for Commander multicolored decks. Love the art on it. Chrome Mox also was reprinted in Eternal Masters, but is seeing a different art here. Cloudstone Curio, I don't think that's a card most people would be excited to open. I don't even know what this gets played in. I've seen decks play it. I think Elves plays it. I don't even really know what it does. Whenever a non-artifact permanent enters the battlefield under your control, you may return another permanent you control that shares a permanent. Yeah, I think Elves plays this sometimes. Other than that, I have no idea. It's from like original Ravnica block or something like that where artifacts were terrible. But Crucible of Worlds, this needs a reprint. This is not the way that it needs a reprint, but this is still sweet. Crucible of Worlds just needs like a reprint that everybody can get a hold of, not something that's rarer than the already hard to find Crucible of Worlds. Mind's Eye, this is an okay card. Probably won't be like one of the most expensive on this list, but I should point out, I had this conversation with somebody just the other night that the cool thing about these masterpiece things is I think people are excited about them. I think they're really cool. I think the art is amazing, but I don't think what's really driving them is the money this time, but the playability. With with Zendikar Expeditions, like everybody was like, "Oh, fetches, they're worth money." Like you open a Tectonic Edge and you're like, "Oh, it's only $40 or something like that," or "Oh, my Dust Bowl's only $40." And that's really the only thing you focused on. But a lot of these artifacts are played in all sorts of formats, including Commander, Legacy, Modern, and the Gear Hulks will probably be standard play. Like a lot of them will see standard play. So, like I think people want these cards to play them. They do for the fetches too. You see people with like all Zendikar fetched out land bases, but the money really drove that. I think what's driving this here is that people want these cards. These are cool cards. But anyway, Mana Vault, a really cool card. Lotus Petal. Lotus Petal is like a common from a couple sets, but sweet art here. Lightning Greaves, it would be okay to open that. Lightning Greaves is a Commander staple. Mox Opal is really, really sweet. It was reprinted, I think, last in Modern Masters 2 a couple years ago or last year. Painter's Servant, unfortunately banned in Commander, but super cool. Rings of Brighthearth with the callback to the original Rings of Brighthearth. Scroll Rack, it's like I really don't like this card, but I can admit like it's super powerful and a lot of people do love it, so makes sense. Static Orb is okay. I don't love Static Orb either, but it's a good card. Solemn Simulacrum would be sweet. I think this card is amazing. Keep in mind, like for each of these cards, like the entire thing is foiled. Soul Ring, that I can't even imagine like people clamoring to have a Soul Ring. Sculpt in Steel is okay. Sure. Steel Overseer. I don't know. Affinity people are the only people who want Steel Overseer, but they will want this. And then obviously the 3 swords, and that is all of them. There are 40 in the set, and there's 30 in the set, and we have the full spoiler in all 30 of them. So we can expect 24 more in the set. So why only these swords? The other ones will very likely be in the next set. But if you open any of these swords in limited, you win the game. Like any of them, they're all really, really good. But they just win you the game on their own. Especially Fire and Ice. This card is like not even a fair card in a game of limited. Like if you read it, it says this is not a fair card in a game of limited. But anyway, just wanted to go through those. I should probably should have made a separate video for all of those because they take a while to talk about and there's a lot to say about them. But they're all cool. I would not be disappointed opening any of them except for the Helm, whose name I don't know because the card sucks. But yeah, that's what to look forward to. Anyway, moving on past this. I have no idea. And I already see the vanilla starting. Like, I already see the vanilla. So, I haven't seen any of these cards from this point forward. And keep in mind, the full spoiler is due out on Friday. which is, 3 more days from now. So they are very likely going to start putting the chaff out there. At least the majority of what we see will be commons and uncommons. Still a couple mythics left to go, I think, and I think we're waiting on one more Planeswalker card. Or at least someone in one of my videos told me there's supposed to be a fourth Planeswalker card, but we'll see. Woodland Stream, so I'm assuming this means the whole cycle will be there because it's common. If it was uncommon, I would be a little less likely to believe that, or maybe half the cycle will be in the next set. But these are the lands that they made for the Shadows over Innistrad block, and they said that they had made them with generic names and settings so that they could reprint them in common blocks. So we will probably see this cycle of lands for a long time coming in Limited, at least. They're designed for Limited, and obviously we still have like Lumber and Falls and stuff like that, so we don't have to resort to playing just a bad tap land. But in Limited, this is great, and seeing this at Common makes me really happy because it means there's going to be mana fixing at Common. I'm a big fan of playing like as many colors in a Limited deck as I can when I'm drafting, so cards like this make me really happy. Nissa art number 27 is 3 and a green for a rare sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Search your library and graveyard for a card named Nissa Nature's Artisan. Reveal it and put it into your hand. Then shuffle your library. Okay. Wait. No. Okay, this is from the dual deck, right? This has to be from the deck because... Yeah, Nissa Nature's Artisan is the one from the Planeswalker deck. I believe the one from Kaladesh is called Vital Force. So I don't think this is a card from Kaladesh. I'm going to double check that afterwards. I should really start reading Magic articles before I make these videos. But they said each deck was going to have something that, a card that works in tandem with the Planeswalker in the deck. So that's got to be for that. As far as I'm not going to evaluate it very much because it's not going to be something that we play with very often. But this does seem good with that card. Like it tutors for a land and your main Planeswalker. And keep in mind those Planeswalkers cost 6, so this potentially gets your Planeswalker out on turn 5, which is sweet. This is a standard playable card that should be mentioned. And if for some reason that Nissa becomes popular in Standard, then sure. But there are already 2 other Nissas in Standard, and I think they're much better than the Planeswalker one. So yeah, don't expect to see this in Standard, but keep in mind that those new cards for the Planeswalker decks are Standard playable. Terrain Elemental, 1 and a green for a 3/2. Sweet, awesome. Just a vanilla creature, but this is a good beater. Green obviously getting the fair share of the color pie here by being a 3/2 instead of a 3/1, but this is great. I can see this is a common too, so I can see this being like a really high pick. When you're looking for 2-drops to fill out your curve, you're looking for stuff exactly like this. I mean, this is a really strong card for a common. Guardian of the Great Conduit. Awesome. 3 and a green for a 2/4 elemental with reach. As long as you control a Nissa Planeswalker, Guardian of the Great Conduit gets +2/+0 and has vigilance. I'm assuming this is also part of the Planeswalker deck, but this could also work with the other Nissas in Standard. So if it is part of the Planeswalker deck, it's also in Standard. Keep that in mind. So if you control a Nissa, this becomes a 4/4 reach with vigilance, which is okay. Not super excited about it, but sure. Like, why not? I've got to really make sure. Yeah, okay. I was about to scroll up and say, like, if I start seeing, like, red cards and Chandra cards, then this is... I'm assuming this terrain is all, like, Planeswalker deck stuff. In fact, Alright. There we go. There we go. Planeswalker deck, standard legal. People at home have already seen this. Like, what are you doing? Like, just scroll up. Okay, so that maybe means that Woodland Stream and Stone Quarry are not in Kaladesh, which makes sense now that I think about it. It's possible, but maybe not. So take away what I said about mana fixing until I see something that proves me wrong. But anyway, new art on Stone Quarry, whatever. Great. Renegade Firebrand, 2 and a red. As long as you control a Chandra Planeswalker, Renegade Firebrand gets +1/+0 and has first strike, and it's a 3/2, so it becomes a 3 mana 4/2 first striker if you control Chandra. That's like an okay card. It helps protect the Chandra really well. A 4-power first striker is very hard to get through. And I see what they're going for. So there's 1 sorcery for each Planeswalker. There's 1 creature for each Planeswalker. Does that mean Terrain Elemental is not in this set? Or is not in Kaladesh? It might not be. It probably isn't now that I think about it. Which is unfortunate because that card looked really exciting. But anyway, Liberate and Combustion. Ooh, that's a cool name. I like that name. Is 4 in red for a sorcery whose rarity doesn't matter. Liberating Combustion deals 6 damage to target creature. You may search your library or graveyard for a card named Chandra Pyrogenius. Jeez. Reveal it and put it into your hand. If you search your library, shuffle it. So 5 mana, kill a creature, or 6 damage to a creature, and then search up that Chandra, which seems sweet. So finally, Flame Lash, 3 in a red, instant, 4 damage to target creature or player is decent. Okay, so I'm assuming Terrain Elemental and Flame Lash are like the commons that the commons that we will not be seeing in Kaladesh, which is a little disappointing because they both seem like good cards. Anyway, I should have done my research first here, as it's telling, but I'm assuming if we go above, we'll start seeing some actual spoilers for what's the set called? Kaladesh. Alright, first one here. Consul's Power. 1 white for an enchantment. Creatures your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your opponent's control, you gain 1 life. Okay, 1 mana enchantment. This seems good. It falls off a little bit later in the game when your opponent's already established a board presence. But if you can get this on turn 1, that is really strong. It lets you just bash in with a lot of creatures. Makes it really hard for your opponent to keep up with tempo plays and stuff like that. And also makes your bounce spells just a nightmare because your opponent's losing a creature. You're going to swing in and deal some damage. And then they replay it. It comes in tapped. You still get to swing in and deal some damage. So Mini Thalia, for those of you who've played Thalia on Eldritch Moon Limited, it's a fantastic card. This seems okay. It's a rare. I don't know that I want to open this as my rare, but once I do, like if I open this in the first pack or maybe pick it up like second or third, I would look to draft a more aggressive deck, and then it gains you some life too, which seems like just a bonus here, but is not necessarily the worst either. So yeah, this is just a solid card. Having all your opponent's creatures come in tapped is definitely a thing that they reserve for rares, and it does feel strong enough that it should be on a rare. It's just not an exciting ability to be on a rare. Bomat Courier. Remember we have that Bomat Bomb Brigade or whatever, Bridge Brigade. I don't know. It was a boat. Bomat Courier. 1 mana for a 1/1 rare artifact creature construct. A lot of 1/1 rares. With haste. 1/1 haste for 1. Let's go. Whenever it attacks, exile the top card of your library face down. You can't look at it. You cannot look at it. It says so on the card. Pay red, discard your hand, sacrifice this thing, put all cards exiled with Bomat Courier into their owner's hands. Interesting. Alright, this seems quirky. I'm going to be honest and say that it doesn't seem good. The problem is, like, this thing is super easy to kill. So ideally what you want to do is like stack up a bunch of cards, and then when you are out of cards in your hand, pay red and sack this and then get all those cards. But first off, this has to start dealing... Oh, it's whenever it attacks. It doesn't necessarily have to deal damage. But whenever it attacks, you get a thing. And then you empty your hand out, you pay red, sack this guy, and you get all those cards that were exiled. So it could be a draw many or something like that. Problem is, he's a 1/1, so he's going to die. And the other disappointing thing here is, like, if your opponent goes to block him and kill him, or if your opponent just directs some sort of removal at him, you would normally be tempted to, like, sack him in response and get the effect, but you got to already have your hand pretty low. Obviously, that's like a decent effect if you can stack up cards and empty your hand out really quickly, then sure. But if you can get this down on turn 1, it's often going to get in at least twice before your opponent has a blocker. It's not often that games go, well, I play a turn 1, you play a turn 1. And keep in mind, I'm looking at this completely from a limited point of view. I don't know anything about how this would play in Constructed, so let me know if this is like a powerhouse or something, but it doesn't look like it. It has a lot of potential. This thing can draw you a lot of cards, which is a lot from your 1/1, or from your 1-mana creature. Just being able to draw a bunch of cards off of it seems good, but that discard your hand clause stops it from being amazing. Obviously, if that discard your hand thing wasn't there, this would just be fantastic, but as is, it seems like it's fairly balanced. Scraphead Scrounger. Scraphead Scrounger. He scrounges scrap heads. He is a 2-mana, 3/2 construct artifact creature, also a rare, cannot block. One of my least favorite lines of text on a card. 1 in a black, exile another creature card from your graveyard, return him from your graveyard to the battlefield. Alright, I'm like super sick of cards like this. They're okay, they're usually bad, and I hate them being my rare. Despoiler of Souls, I know you're down here. Yeah, this guy right here. This card sucks. Even in Limited, it's bad. Like, Recursion is fine, but on a creature that can't block, it's way, way worse. People super overrate, like, a recursive creature that can't block. And there are a lot of them, and you know what they are. I will say that this does have a couple things going for it outside of, you know what, scrap everything I said. This card is okay, and the reason is, first off, Despoiler of Soul costs double black, which means you're sometimes just not going to be able to cast it on turn 2, which is when it's at its peak. This thing is colorless, so you're always going to be able to cast it on turn 2. It has a black activation, which means that you probably won't play it outside of a black deck. A 3/2 for 2 that can't block, in my opinion, is a bad card. And I know a lot of people might disagree with me, but not being able to block is a huge detriment on a creature, and people like just snap them up because of the high power and then lose because they get in a position where they can't block with a creature. This thing does hit hard though, and that's what's going for it, but as my rare, like, this is not one I want out of a rare. And I will say, also comparing this to something like Despoiler of Souls, that activated ability, exiling a creature, exiling 1 creature from your graveyard is huge compared to exiling 2. Despoiler of Souls required you to exile 2 creatures from your graveyard. This only requires 1, and it does come back onto the battlefield instantly, so you can kind of give it like pseudo haste by doing it at the end of your opponent's turn. So maybe a little stronger than like I just initially jumped to, but still, I don't think this card is like a powerhouse or anything. I think it's like a fine rare because you'll play it in any deck. And on that note, while the next one's loading, colorless cards make like very good. There are a lot of rare colorless cards, and they make particularly good. Planeswalker. They make good first picks because they don't commit you to a lot of colors. Obviously, like, this one's better in red, this one's better in black, but they don't commit you too hard to any particular colors. Dovin Bond. So somebody in one of my comments had mentioned that this would very likely be an Azorius Planeswalker, and it is. 2 white and blue for a 3 loyalty counter Planeswalker. +1 until your next turn. Up to 1 target creature gets -3/-0, and its activated abilities can't be activated. That's pretty sweet. That's an effect that I haven't really seen on a Planeswalker before, locking down activated abilities. -1, you gain 2 life and draw a card. That seems decent as well, and it's not very costly. And then -7, you get an emblem with your opponents. Can't untap more than 2 permanents during their untap step. So Static Orb, or whatever that card's called. Alright, this seems good. It doesn't seem busted. It seems fair. Again, this is an emblem that takes a very long time to get to because you're going to play it. And assuming you're doing nothing but ticking it up and it's not being pressured and nothing happens, like, you go... It's 4 the turn you play it, and then 5, 6, 7 emblem. So, like, 4 turns after you've played it, you had to have ticked it up without really doing anything. Thankfully, the ability here definitely helps, and it only affects creatures. Well, no, never mind. I'm not even going to say what I was going to say because it's stupid. But being able to lock down activated abilities seems pretty decent as well. And this minus ability is strong because it draws you a card. If you do nothing but minus this 3 turns in a row, that's pretty decent. It ends up being a 4-mana gain 6, draw 3, which is really, really good. And the +1 is very reminiscent of Little Jace's flip side and New Liliana's +1 ability, where you're just shrinking a creature to the point where it's no longer a threat until the next turn, and then you can just threaten to activate this ability over and over again. So if you can dirtle hard enough, like, this ability can definitely let you tick up Dovin without worrying about a particular creature each turn. So seems really good. Seems strong and limited. Just being able to shut off a creature for a turn seems strong. I'm not saying it's like busted or anything, but compared to Narset, which was the last blue-white planeswalker in Limited, like, Narset was absolutely trash in Limited. Like, it was so bad in Limited, and this one seems a lot better. Like, at least it does something. No offense, Narset, love you. Alright, Inspired Charge. I still hate this card. Giving it new art doesn't make me hate this card less. It's just expensive for this sort of effect, but I will point out that these effects do win games sometimes. And sometimes you are the Inspired Charge deck, where you just got nothing but token generation. You didn't get any bombs, but you got a bunch of, like, little white weenie creatures, and you need a way to win the game. So you use these mass pump spells to do it. So if you're looking for Inspired Charge, take it. If you're not, then don't take it. Often a last pick. It was in Battle for Zendikar, where, like, I don't think I ever saw it cast, or at least when it was cast, it never won a game from what I saw, but sometimes it can do that, and it is the type of thing you have to be aware is in the format. It's the type of trick. I mention this a lot, and I think I mention it for white cards more than anything else, but when you go to pre-release, it is worth your time and knowledge to know that this is in the set, because it could catch you off guard if you don't know about it, whereas if you're aware that it's in the set, you can play around it. So somebody's pre-release is going to go with somebody dropping Inspired Charge, winning the game, and then the other person's going to say, oh, I didn't even know Inspired Charge was in the set. Do your research. It helps on pre-release. I promise. You'll win more games if you're aware of the combat tricks that people can play against you. Aetherborn Marauder is a Insect Knight. I'm sorry, an Aetherborn Rogue. Same thing. A 2/2 for 4, 3 and a black. Uncommon, flying and lifelink. Already love it. Already love it. When Aetherborn Marauder enters the battlefield, move any number of 1/1 counters from other permanents you control onto Aetherborn Marauder. What? This is awesome. This is really cool. So even if this can snatch one +1/+1 counter from another creature and put it on itself, a 3/3 lifelink flyer for 4 is sick. That's really good. Like, on its base, I would pay 4 mana for a 2/2 lifelink flyer. I really value lifelink on evasive creatures. This just represents a 4-point life swing every time it deals damage. And then if you can nab counters, just the dream, like, nabbing more than one counter off this seems insane for an uncommon. You ever grab, like, 2 or more, you've got an actual, like, bomb uncommon, which doesn't happen very often. A 4/4 lifelink flyer for 4 is insane and, like, nearly unbeatable at this point in the game. And get it to a 3/3, it's good. At a 2/2, it's, like, a little lacking, but there's a lot of potential here. This is really strong. And it pairs really nicely with the common black creature we already saw yesterday. It's a 3/2 for 3. When it dies, you put a 1/1 counter on another creature you control. So you can just follow that up with this. Or play that on 3, trade with a creature, put a 1/1 counter on another creature, and then follow up with this. Obviously, that's, like, ideal circumstances, but this has a lot of potential. That I just read that and, like, immediately seems really strong. So we'll see. Potentially strongest black uncommon. I don't know. Salivating Gremlins. All right, whatever. 2 and a red for a 2/3 common gremlin. Your standard stats. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, Salivating Gremlins gets +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. Seems pretty sweet if you can ever rattle off multiple artifacts. This is actually just a sweet card in general because it has the base stats to be playable in any deck, and then every now and then it gets this bonus of being a 4/3 trampler for 3 mana on your common, which is pretty nice. Brazen Wolves is a sweet card. I love Brazen Wolves in Eldritch Moon, and this is occasionally Brazen Wolves with trample, with the downside of being a little bit worse vast majority of the time. Flash artifacts obviously give this much better, like, just tons of value. what are they called? Fabricate creatures that can make multiple artifacts. Trigger this multiple times. If you can just, I don't know if there's like a way to put multiple tokens on the battlefield other than Fabricate, and then you can trigger this multiple times. It triggers for each artifact that comes in, so a lot of potential off that, which is a lot for a common. Like, just to be able to talk about a common that much seems pretty nice. It's better than Inspired Charge. I will back that up. Ruinous Gremlin. Yes, Gremlins. Thank you. 1 red for a 1/1. Sacrifice Ruinous Gremlin. Destroy target artifact. Alright, and this is okay. And I want to point out that I had mentioned, I think, maybe I didn't actually mention this on one of my videos, but they have not shown us a lot of artifact destruction in this set. Obviously, it's an artifact themed set, so it wouldn't make sense to just like print cards that completely hose artifacts. But there does need to be some sort of like control against it. And every now and this is probably main deckable, honestly, because every deck is going to have artifacts. But having like a couple of these in the sideboard and then just siding into them against very heavy artifact decks or decks with a lot of vehicles or these really strong artifacts or gear hulks is pretty nice. The fact that your little 1-mana guy can deal some damage early in the game and then blow up your opponent's bomb, that's just really good. So don't underestimate this card. This is the type of card where I would be reluctant to play it in my main board, but I'd always be happy to open it. And on pre-release, I would like cross my fingers hoping I open a couple of these because people will have artifact bombs. Like, expect every deck you play against to have a Gear Hulk or something because there are a ton of really, really powerful artifacts in this set. Moving on, I guess I didn't click that one. Maybe, I don't know, it's a gremlin, so I assumed it's bad. But anyway, Mull Fist Squad is 3 and a black for a 3/1 common human artificer, a menace creature with Fabricate 1. So Fabricate, again, you can either make this a 3/1 that comes in with a 1/1, or you can make this a 4/2 menace, which is okay. 4-power menace is pretty strong for 4 mana. It is going to trade with something relevant a good number of times. Your opponent can't just put a 2/2 in front of this, which is usually the downfall of 4 mana 4/2s, is that they trade very low, but your opponent's often going to have to throw multiple things in front of this, so it's either going to eat 2 smaller creatures, or it's going to trade for 1 larger creature, while also just sometimes being unblockable if your opponent only has 1 creature. I would say most of the time you're going to put a counter on this creature unless you have a use for that extra token. And I do want to point out it's also an artificer, and there is a piece of equipment that gives +1/+2 and equips for free to artificers. If that's relevant, then sure, that would make this a 5/4 for 4 mana, which is really, really strong menace creature. But this is a solid common. It's not bad. It's not something I think I would be actively looking for in most decks. It's not like it's really synergistic with anything other than just your typical artifact themes, but seems pretty strong. It's a pretty aggressive card. Whirler Virtuoso. Whirler Virtuoso. Cool name. 1 blue red for a 2/3 uncommon Vidalcan Artificer. When it enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy counters. You may pay 3 energy counters to create a 1/1 Thopter creature token with flying. Alright, this seems fine. On its base, this is just a 2/3 that comes attached with a 1/1 flyer, which is a card we've seen quite a bit of in some variation in like every set for the last 3 or 4 sets. Eldrazi Sky Spawner and I can't even think of the other one's names, but you get the point, right? These little things that come attached with a 1/1, and when the 1/1 has flying, that's really good. And this has all the flexibility of other energy counter cards in that you can either use energy from your other cards to make more Thopters, or you can use the energy from this to fuel your other cards if that 1/1 Thopter is not doing you any good. So this is a pretty strong effect. It's the type of card that's good in multiples, and it's still that 2/3 for 3, which is pretty strong. How high of a pick this is, I don't actually know yet. It depends on, like, there is going to be an energy deck in Limited, but how easy it is to assemble it is yet to be seen. Like, a lot of the good cards are uncommons and rares so far. We haven't seen very many of the commons. So I don't know. I'll have to come back to this card and really evaluate like how early am I supposed to pick it. Obviously, it's a sign that red-blue is open because it is just a strong card, but I don't know. I'll look back at it again. Moving on to more Vidalcan Artificers, we have Padim, Consul of Innovation, 3 and a blue for a 1/4 legendary Vidalcan Artificer. Is a rare. Artifacts you control have hexproof. Yes. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control the artifact with the highest converted mana cost or tied for the highest converted mana cost, draw a card. Okay, pretty sweet. First off, good limited card. If you're an artifact deck, because if you're not, it is a 1/4 for 4, which is awful. Second off, super EDH playable. If you ever just have Darksteel Forge on the battlefield, like you just draw extra cards every turn, and then all your artifacts are hexproof and indestructible, which is insane. Like your opponent cannot interact with your artifacts, which is really, really good. So I've seen Darksteel Forge is like the backbone of a lot of really killer strategies in EDH. I've seen Narset decks play them, and this has the potential to just like be really good. However, he's fragile too, so I don't know. He is a 1/4 for 4, which is a little. This is the type of card that like is just going to be passed in limited a lot because it doesn't look inherently strong, but is the type of card that you take. Probably not pack 1 very often. Like I don't know this. Again, I got to see the format as a whole, but pack 1, this doesn't seem strong. But once you're in the artifact deck, like I'm talking like 7, 8, 9 plus artifacts, like creature artifacts, vehicles, things like that, then this card gets really insane. And I want to point out also, because it just came to mind, if you can use this to crew your vehicles, like crew 1 vehicles, then those vehicles are hexproof, and you're also getting value out of your 1/4 guy. So there's a lot of synergy to be had here. Like Commander, new mono blue Commander, no, definitely not. But whatever. There's got to be some like less exciting cards, but it's still pretty strong in certain builds, just very weak in others. Inventor's Apprentice. Guess I should click these. Ooh, we're about to get a Nissa card number 25, it looks like. Inventor's Apprentice. 1 red for a 1/2 human artificer. Uncommon. Gets +1/+1 as long as you control an artifact. So a 1 mana 2/3 if you have an artifact. Sweet. This is a good aggressive card. If you can curve out, of course. And if not, like, whatever. It's also an Artificer. So, like, this whole Artificer equipment thing, I told you I'd check back on that and kind of let you know. But this seems like a pretty decent deck. Like, is Artificers going to be a deck in Limited? White-red Artificers? Maybe. But this is a strong card on its own. The problem is when you don't hit that artifact on, like, turn 2 or 3, and then you just paid a 1 mana 1/1, and you have, the worst card in the world. But it pairs well with equipment because it's going to get +1/+1 just for controlling that equipment. But it also has a lot of potential as just like an aggressive card throughout the course of the game if you control an artifact. So yeah, not much else to say about that. Don't draft it just because it's a 1 mana 1/1. Those are bad. But 1 mana 2/3s are really good. Attune with Aether. 1 green for a common sorcery. Search your library for a basic land card. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. You get double green. Oh, this is 1 green. This is 1 green. This is sweet. I love cards like this in Limited because they let you play 3 colors really, really easy. Assuming green is your primary color. It's really easy to splash in most formats if you're playing green as one of your main colors because green gives you all of the cards like this where you can go fetch up your other colors. And then that 2 energy might be relevant too. So this just seems like a solid card. You're not losing any real card advantage, but you're also getting the 2 energy counters. So ideally you could play this turn 1 to fix your colors or make sure you're hitting a land drop. Or if you draw it later in the game, you're using it more for the energy counters in the right kind of deck. So I've already seen a lot of really aggressive red-green energy cards or energy users, so to speak, but this seems like an okay card. Definitely not like something you take super, super early, but once you're like red-green or blue-green or something like that, or if you know you're splashing, then it gets a lot better. Chandra's Pyro Helix. Alright, that's a name. 1 and a red for an instant, deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 target creatures and or players. So is this Twin Bolt? Twin Bolt deals 2 damage divided as you choose among 1 or 2 target creatures and or players. So it's alright, so it's Twin Bolt, but with Chandra. Okay, it's Chandra Bolt. We're playing Chandra Bolt. So Twin Bolt's a fine card. The fact that it can just be a 2-mana shock is great, and it's a little bit better than that when you have the potential. It doesn't come up often, but you have the potential to just kill 2 creatures. Seems wonderful, so take that, your opponent's Fabricate creatures. Dead. This is the type of card that really punishes your opponents for playing like that black common menace we just saw, and then trying to fabricate off of it and get a token, and then you just kill both their guys for your 2-mana spell. Instant speed. Sometimes the 2 damage is enough to close out a game. Being able to just burn players like Twin Bolt's a fine card, and I imagine this will be a fine card too. So not much else to say about that. We've seen Twin Bolt a lot. It was just in Conspiracy too, and it was fine in Conspiracy as well. Tezzeret's Ambition, 3 and double blue for a common sorcery, draw 3 cards. If you control no artifacts, discard a card. Nope, I'm off this. I do not like using a whole turn just to draw cards. I like when my draw spell does something else. I'll say that's true for sorcery. Like, this is a sorcery speed, Jace's Ingenuity at its best. And then sometimes it's like worse than that, and that's not a place I want to be. Don't overestimate cards like this. Like, just using your whole turn to draw cards is not amazing, and doing it at sorcery speed is a lot worse. So is this card okay? Sure. Is it playable? Sure. Is it strong? No. It's like not particularly amazing in any regards. Think Pieces of the Puzzle, or not Pieces of the Puzzle, the other card with Jace looking at books. What's it called? Pour over the pages. Like Pieces of the Puzzle from a different art perspective. That card's like fine, but it's in a Madness set, and even that equates to like a 5-mana draw 2 most of the time. But it gives you some sort of card advantage. This is just a lot of times going to be a 5-mana draw 2, and that discard you're not getting anything off of. And then sometimes it's a 5-mana draw 3, but you're probably not doing anything else that turn. So perfectly playable, but don't go hard on these. Like, take 1 at most. You don't want multiples of these. They're very clunky. They're very clunky, and it's a fine card, but I don't really love it. I don't know. Maybe draw spells are going to be super good. Impeccable Timing. Look, it's a Johnny. Impeccable Timing. 1 and a white for a common instant. Impeccable Timing deals 3 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Seems good. I see Gideon's Reproach down here, and I was about to mention this is basically the same thing as Gideon's Reproach with a smaller window on it. 3 damage instead of 4 damage, but Gideon's Reproach was like a top tier white common in that set. Of course, the creatures were also bigger, so in a set where the creatures are probably just a tiny little bit smaller, you can get away with this and still kind of achieve the same effect. Obviously, white always gets these sort of effects that are just a little bit awkward because your opponent has to be attacking or blocking, and sometimes you just need to clear off something that's sitting there not doing anything, and this won't do it. But so you need to kind of like force your opponent into an attack or block. But awesome card. Again, be aware that this card exists. You will see it at the pre-release. Somebody's going to play it against you, or you're going to play it. And yeah, a Johnny. Expect a Johnny's Next Planeswalker card next set, I would guess, since he's in the art. And if he's in the art for this set, he's definitely in the art for the next set. So there you go. Impeccable Timing. Skywhale. Oh my god, it's a fish whale. I think they just call those whales. Skywhaler Shot. Interesting. We have Skywhales. Okay, mine. Anyway, Skywhaler Shot. 2 and a white for an instant. Destroy target creature with power 3 or greater. Scry 1. So this is a better Reprisal. Reprisal, I believe, is the same. No, Reprisal is 1 and a white. But wow, this is really strong. This kills anything that's relevant. Like, anything you want to kill, most of the time, this kills. And then you also get a Scry on top of it, and it's an instant, and it's, like, cheaply costed. 2 and a white, super strong. This is like what Smite the Monstrous wants to be, or what Humble the Brute wanted to be. And I I don't know. I can see this being a top pick as well. This is really strong. Like, this just deals with your opponent's bomb, like, for 3 mana very efficiently, and you get that extra little advantage of scrying. So, yeah, seems good. Skywhales. Skywhales are... Oh, my God. Skywhales everywhere. Anyway, looks like we have 2 cards left. Thanks for hanging around, by the way, guys. Long-finned Skywhale. So, alright. 2 and double blue for a 4/3 uncommon flyer. Can block only creatures with flying. So, big Vaporkin. Cool. Vaporkin's strong. Vaporkin's a strong card because it's an aggressive flyer that comes down early. This is a 4-power flyer for 4 with the same drawback. And I have already mentioned not being able to block is huge drawback, and it is just as much on this card as it is on any other, but the stronger that card is, the less of a drawback it is, because the more likely it's going to be able to just attack through things, which is what you want to be doing with those cards anyway. This seems like a top-notch pick, good in multiples, because even though you're probably going to be taking damage on the crackback, if you're constantly attacking, you're just dealing so much damage in the air that you're probably going to be ahead in that race. So this is probably even good in multiples, and it is a freaking sky whale, so you have to play it. I wish they made it like a bird whale or something. No, I don't. Whale's fine. And then let's check this out. First off, just at a glance, I saw a bunch of energy counters on this, so I'm assuming since this is a Leviathan, it's some really janky, dumb effect, but let's see. Suspending Judgment for the next, minute of my life. Aether Squall Ancient. Ancient Squall Aether. 5 and double blue. This thing costs 7. Already hate it. Suspend Judgment. 5 and double blue for a 6/6 rare Leviathan with flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get 3 energy counters. Pay, it looks like 8 energy. Yeah, 8 energy. Return all other creatures to their owner's hands. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery. I love it. It's fantastic. This is great. So essentially you play this 7 mana 6/6 with flying. It doesn't have any drawbacks to it. So that's a strong card. Like a 6/6 flyer can definitely close out the game. 7 mana is a lot, and it probably seems like this format's going to be a lot quicker. So I don't know how viable this creature is, but that passive generation of energy counters is strong. 3 seems like a lot. Any card that makes 2 seems good. Any card that makes 3 seems really, really good. And you just get it every upkeep. And then pay 8 mana, win the game. Return all other creatures to their owner's hands. At sorcery speed only, though, and that is relevant, so you can't just get someone with it, but sometimes you just get someone with it by returning everything, and then they lose because you still have this stupid 6/6 flyer. Again, format looks a lot faster. These vehicles deal a lot of damage. There are some really aggressive decks, some really strong early creatures. I don't know how viable your 7 mana creatures are going to be. Think of it's a huge difference when you play something like Battle for Zendikar. You can afford to put 8 drops in your deck because that's how the set is designed. But when you play core sets or you play just your general standard set, they're often built in a way where your 7 and 8 mana creatures, sometimes you're going to play a game where you don't even get to that point and you never get to cast them. And sometimes you're going to play a game where you get to drop them and then you're just dead the next turn because it took too long. So this card is absolutely strong, but I have to play the set before I can give an opinion on how good the 7 and 8 drops are going to be in the set, because 7 is a lot of mana. And there's just no two ways about it. 7 is a lot of mana, and it looks like a lot for this set. This set has, tons of aggressive red creatures, a lot of really aggressive white creatures too, and then on top of that, it just has a lot of burn in the form of red cards as well. So the game could be completely closed out by the time you get there. And then it also just sucked to play this card, and then someone just shoots it down. Someone literally shoots your sky whale down out of the sky, and then they get to scry. They killed your whale, and they also get to scry. That's the pudding on top of the cake. For those of you who eat pudding on top of your cake. Anyway, tons of cards. This is probably a really long video. I didn't even check, but if you're at this point, thanks for watching. You are awesome. I really appreciate you. We will be seeing the rest of this set, and there are 143 out of 264 cards spoiled. So that's another 120 to go. Probably get a good like 20, 25 tomorrow, 20, 25 Thursday, and then the whole set will drop on Friday. So over this weekend, I'll be doing a couple videos to break up that last segment, probably by color. So be on the lookout for those. Anyway, thank you guys for watching, hanging out on my couch with me with my very dim lighting and talking about Skywhales, because that's my favorite thing in the world now. Anyway, thanks again for watching. My name's Timothy. Like, comment, and do that other thing. Subscribe. And, yeah, let me know your opinion on Kaladesh. I love it. It's fantastic. The Skywhales. All right. See you guys later. Oh, yeah.